let's do permanent rose. So here we are, I think at 60%. So our halfway point is again between 30 and 40. So the 30 looks good, and I think again we might want to put a thin wash, and make sure you're using the right wash here. We want to go to permanent rose. I'm going to just add a bit more value to 50%. I think our 20% between 10 and 20 looks pretty good, and our 40 to 50 probably could go a little bit darker, but when I look at it as a group, the steps look good, so I'm going to leave it alone. Blue, on the other hand, is quite dark, and if we squint at it, it's just about 90%. Maybe we could go to 80%. If I'm looking at it, 80 might be a little better than the dark 90%. So if we start at 80%, we know we're still going to go to 10% on our value scale. It means that 50%, 80%, so between 40 and 50 is where we're supposed to be on the blue. And you can see that the blue, based on the value scale, is very light. So what we need to do now, we'll test this color. I think this is going to work. If we have to, we may have to put 2 coats on. I'm going to add here at the 50% mark. And I think I'll also use the same pigment and add another layer to the 80% or 85%. Now, if 40 and 50 is our 50%, we've got to go between 20 and 30 for our 35% step. So what we need to do is dilute our pigment a little bit. And that's not diluted, but diluted, and see what that does. All right, that looks like a better step relationship. Let's do Prussian blue. Prussian is also like ultramarine, and so we're going to do the same thing here. So between 40 and 50 is going to be our middle value. I'm going to add more color here because I know I need it. So I'm going to do that first. All right, I'm going to dilute this. I don't want it to be the same saturation. And I will lighten it even more because I think this needs to be darker as well. And you can see here, if I put it in screen, this is my full saturation. Actually, it's lighter than full saturation, but what I've done is added multiple layers, glazed multiple layers onto the drawing paper so that I could get a nice even tones. But this is my lightest color. I just added more water to it. And we'll just put another layer on number 2. And that looks pretty good to me. Our next one is burnt sienna, and you'll see that the value here, the darkness, is much lighter on the burnt sienna. So if we're going to look at burnt sienna, I'm going to say this is probably a 50% value at full strength. So our 50% on the chart is really a 30% value. All right, I'm going to bring in my sepia, and I'm going to start very light because this gets very strong very quickly. So I want to make sure that I'm not oversaturating. So I'm going to go very light. I'm going to add a layer of wash, which is the 50%. And if I squint at it, that's pretty good. And then that means this one, I think it's just about right. So that's all we had to do is just make an adjustment on the 50%. Our last one that we're going to do is neutral tint. And I would say it's really 100%. So 50% is going to be right there, and that makes it very dark. And then the 80% is right here, which is pretty close. So I would be very careful about adding another layer of value to the 80%. So we're just going to add another thin wash on here, just to give it just a little bit more darkness. And then the 50, and you can see we have to add quite a bit. So it might take a couple of glazing layers to get it to that point. And I think we could still go darker with that shade right there. And then our 30% is really our 20%. And so I'm going to use the same wash here. And we'll put that on. Same concentration as I did on the 50. But because it's already lighter, it will not be as dark. And I'm going to add, I got to take that puddle out of here. The thing about getting nice flat areas is that you have to look at the areas a little sideways to see if there's any areas where there's a heavier concentration of liquid. And the whole point is you want, when you apply this wash, you want it to be even all the way. So you have to move that liquid and lift it out of the way in order to not have your pigments migrating to the edges and then get these dark outlines. So we're going to have to wait now, and then we'll finish that up, and then we will have our complete value chart for each of our pigments.